I'm Mary Cornaby. I'm the Director of Academic Computing at Villanova Law School, and I became interested in the topic of student fears of taking electronic exams because when I was hired at Villanova a year ago, about a third of our exams are given electronically. It's not universal. But one of the things that I noticed uniformly was that students were extremely negative, for the most part, about taking electronic exams. Even those who were normally very, very comfortable with their computer skills. We learned this because of exit interviews with students who had taken exams, poll, what students said on their evaluations. So I embarked on a program to see what we could do about this and how we could change the persona, and discovered some very interesting things, which decided we'd go into today. One of the things that I discovered when I started doing a little bit of research was that student anxiety levels are based upon the student perception, whether it's real or not, of the number of unknown or uncontrollable factors within an exam. So they look at what they can control and what they can't control. What's interesting is that the students who are more computer literate are even sometimes more frightened of taking an exam electronically because they have a better understanding of what can go wrong during an exam. And so what I would find is that they would come into my office saying, well, Professor so-and-so wants to give us an electronic exam, and what are we, what about this, what about this, what about this? When I use the term electronic exam, I can mean a variety of situations. It can be something as simple as typing your exam on a computer and turning it in via diskette. It can be using in-house databases to produce an answer, or it can be going out on the internet at the time of the exam. We have several professors who do that, and that was also one of the things that we tried to control. Way back in 1977, educational psychologists were telling us that just the process of using a computer to do a task invoked anxiety much more so, or somewhat so, than when that task was done in a conventional manner. You add that to the anxiety that law students feel anyway about taking an exam, and I think it's significant. The other thing that I saw, because I started going in and watching students taking electronic exams, was that students who were normally very competent, computer skills dive-bombed during an exam. They did all kinds of things that they would not normally do. And so I started to look at what we could do. First of all, student fears are emotional. You can't resolve them by cognitive means. Someone who's afraid is afraid. I can say, come on, the network hasn't gone down all semester. What do you mean you're afraid the network is going to go down? But the fact is that somebody who's afraid of that is still afraid. Secondly, you have to recognize the emotions experienced by the students. When professors say to me, oh, they're just complaining, the fact is that if the professor had to sit down and take an electronic exam, he or she would be terrified. Third, determine the causes. And fourth, we try to control those items which are not within the student's control. And finally, we try to give students coping tools. Coping tools do not take away the fear, but what coping tools do is to give the students a way out. In other words, if the terminal that I'm working at fails me, there's an open terminal next to me. That's simple. That doesn't get rid of the fear, but it gives them somewhere to go. Right. What I came up with a summary of the causes of fear was poor student training, or the type of student training. Second, student anxiety. Third, and this is a big one, guys, poor exam design. 4, exam room setup. 5, the dreaded potential system failure. And finally, exam monitor judgment, which I'm going to go into a little bit more later. The first is student training. The reality is that students are far less adept in their computer skills, especially under pressure, than we think they are. Most of the law schools that I've worked in, law schools that I know, and certainly our law school, has a computer literacy course. as part of the first year training. The computer literacy course does us absolutely no good during exams. Whatever training the students are going to get has to be in relation to that exam or the exams that they're taking. So, our solution that seems to have worked for us this year is that there is no electronic exam given in any course unless the students in that class have taken a similar practice exam previously. I encourage the professors strongly to give a practice exam in that class, and if they're going to give it under time pressure, that's what the students do. They're in the actual exam room, in the lab that we use for electronic exams, ahead of time, and the students do everything that they're going to do. If it's as simple as typing on a computer, then that's what they do. If it is, we have 2 professors who use electronic casebooks based in folio, and those professors allow us an entire class period to go in and explain to the students how you take an exam using your class notes that you've done in folio. By the time we're done with that presentation, the students like taking an exam using folio class notes because it just means that they can cut and paste from their class notes. But the point is that it needs to be training in connection with that particular exam. That pre-exam talk should be routine. I won't sign off on an electronic exam being given unless I or one of my staff has an opportunity to go in and talk to the class about what's being done. One of the leading causes of anxiety is the pressure imposed on students by time. That's the pressure. There are a variety of solutions that we've used. Use a take-home exam. Who says that an electronic exam has to be given in a classroom, in a lab, under pressure? If all of the professor is looking for, if it's an open book exam, and the professor is looking simply for a diskette with a response on it, then who says that has to be done in the lab between 9 and noon? A second solution, give a 2-hour exam in 3 hours, and give them 3 hours to do it. I have a caution about this. I teach myself, I teach in the computer law area, and my estimation of what should take the students 2 hours is often grossly it's often a little bit off. What I do is that I take the exam myself under pressure, or I ask someone else who knows the area to take the exam and see how long it takes them. Because I usually find that if I say that I'm going to give a 2-hour exam and I give them 3 hours to do it, it actually takes them 3 to 4 hours to do it. So sometimes, because you're taking it electronically, you need to cut your exam back a little bit. This is a big one. Exam monitors should have the authority to hand out time extensions for problems caused by exam room setup, system failure, or exam design without going back to talk to the professor. That's very, very important because, especially if you're going to give an exam under time pressure, you don't want to waste 15 or 20 minutes hunting down the professor while the student is sitting there. The exam monitors should have the authority to say, okay, you can have a 10-minute extension. Okay, exam design. Has the professor taken the exam under pressure? Has the exam been reviewed by the academic computing director or computing services, the librarians, or the academic support office for potential problems? That sounds like a lot of people involved in an exam. What we do is a team approach where, depending on the professor and the subject, 2 or 3 people will review the exam before it goes to the registrar. The reason for that, I have seen in several instances a professor try to give an exam, for instance, which went out onto the internet and required the students to pull a statute from a site on the internet called Thomas, which is the Library of Congress site. My background was in law libraries, and the head of our reference section took one look at the exam and said, the students can't do this. You can't access Thomas between 11 and 1 during the day. So just knowing that meant that we could go back to the professor and say, pick something else or give it as a take-home exam. Because I'm not going to have 25 students sitting there between 11 and 1 who can't do a significant part of their exam. Another thing is that having someone in the instructional media services or the computing staff look at an exam and say, well, there's a problem. He wants or she wants 20 people at a time who are taking this exam to access one of our databases, such as Summation Blaze, but we only have a six-person concurrent user site license. So there's no way that we can have all 20 people at a time access this. It was amazing to me that more of this team approach isn't used, because all of the things that we're talking about are simply taking out all of the potential problems for the student. One of the reasons I say the Academic Support Office, and you may or may not have an academic support director or person in your law school, but I guarantee somewhere on campus there is one, is because those people are experts in learning theory and educational psychology. And they understand exam and testing pressures far better than anyone else at the law school. And so I always make them a part of the team. And they've had some very, very valuable contributions to make. So what we require at Villanova is that all computerized exams are reviewed by the team several weeks in the advance of the exam. Our registrar has a deadline for exams to be turned over to her. We get the exam the same day, and we review it, and we can usually get back to a professor within 24 to 48 hours to say, you need to take a look at this. Okay, exam room setup. What happens if the student computer malfunctions? At Villanova, our exams are self-scheduled. What that means is that the students have to go into the registrar's office and sign up for a time to take a particular exam. That gives me an opportunity to dictate how many people are going to be in the electronic lab exam room at any time. If I have a 6 concurrent user site license on a particular database, I can say there will be no more than 6 people at a time taking this exam. I can, and that also allows me to say, if we've got 30 computers in the lab, there will be no more than 25 people at any one time taking this exam on one of the lab computers. And that means that I always have 5 computers free. The idea is that if a student computer malfunctions, the student should be able to move immediately to the next computer, instead of one of the computer support people coming and fiddling with the computer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. The student just immediately moves to another computer. That's also true if students are using their own laptops or a university-provided laptop. We always have extras in the exam room. So our solution is that we limit the numbers of students taking the exam to less than the available workstations. We also tell students to back up their answers onto diskette every several minutes. I will tell you that having to give students specific instructions during the exam that they are to follow is always the least successful. It does not matter what you tell the students to do. We put the instructions about backing up your answer into the exam packet along with the exam. It's done on hot pink paper. The point is 32 high, and every last time a student goes, I forgot to back it up. All right? The other thing is the availability of IS personnel. At Villanova, we do it one of 2 ways. Either the IS person who is on call for the day for exams wears a beeper, or one of us actually sits in the exam room. Our exams are only given between 9 and 1 each day, so it is a half-hour. It is a half-day time commitment, and it is for a 2-week period, but we think that it's important. Exam monitor judgment. The monitor should be someone who knows more about the computers than the students do. Traditionally, honor board students monitor our exams. We have replaced that with staff from my office or the computing services office for the lab. And the reason for that is because I can look at the computer and pretty much judge whether or not that I should give that student a time extension. I mean, because I know what happened. And usually it's that I can push a button and say, no, you didn't, actually you haven't lost it, word perfect, kept a backup copy. Just go back to it. Our goal is that no student should be off the computer for more than 5 minutes. And if we have monitors who have the authority to do the time extensions or to fix something quickly or to say, this is a problem, just move to the next computer, it can be done. But it's the authority. They should have advance permission from the professors to give the students time extensions if, in their judgment, they feel it's necessary. The apocalypse. What you do when everything fails. And thank goodness that's never happened to us. The network down, if the network is down, that doesn't affect typing. You can always tell people if everything else goes, haul out a pencil and paper and start writing. This is why beepers were invented, okay? That's why I always have somebody on call by beeper. The professor should be on campus during the exam anyway. Villanova requires that its people be in their office during the entire time the exam is given. I don't know about other law schools, but that makes incredible common sense to me. The sum total of what we've tried indicates several things to us. First, that there has to be a team approach, extremely important. Second, that the professors have to buy into this and be willing to give up a little bit of autonomy. They find that they get a lot better student evaluations out of this. They find that they learn a little bit more sometimes about exam writing, perhaps in a way that they hadn't thought about it before. Third, our staff like it a great deal better because we all hate being called by a student who's screaming, I can't do this, this has gone down, this is all your fault, I'm going to sue you, that sort of thing. And I think this is extremely important to remember, any time a student is taken away from an exam, even momentarily, they've lost their concentration. It takes them that much longer to get back into an exam. So the whole point of the program should be minimizing the downtime. For that reason, we will not fight with fixing whatever goes down. You just move to another station. Because the point is to get them back on track as soon as possible. I have to say that this spring, in 2 weeks of exams, and we had about, as I said, we had about a third of the classes that were using electronic exams. We only had one problem in 2 weeks. That was it. One problem. We had one state workstation lock up because the student had been told in advance in her class what to do. She simply moved to the computer next to her and started up again. I moved over to ask her if she wanted extra time, and she said, no, I can handle it. And I thought that was great. So I'm very pleased with this. Yeah?
The professors that use the electronic exam, do they feel like they were getting better answers?
That's very interesting. We have the professors that use our electronic exams do so for a variety of reasons. Villanova has a great many high technology law courses. It's one of our specialties. And so for that reason, a lot of the professors use it for that reason. Professors like the ideas, first of all, that they can read the answers. That's a big one. Second, that it forces the students to organize. One of the things that I do in the sort of pre-exam talk when I come into the classroom is that I talk about organizing yourself, and that when you type an exam, you organize yourself in a different fashion than you might if you were handwriting. I encourage the students to do as much as possible of their review in terms of giving themselves short answers. We keep electronic exams on reserve in the library just as we did paper exams, and we encourage the students. I would say that we've had very, very good responses from our professors in terms of the quality of the exam. I found that the quality has gone up, has skyrocketed since last spring. We had students who were really afraid, and it was affecting their answers, and far less so now. But you simply have to try to control what's not within their control. If they know that you're making an effort, they tend to calm down a great deal. Yeah?
Could you elaborate a little more on the electronic exams? I'm hearing you, this sounds like a lot more than, in most cases, than simply the traditional exam and answering it by typing it on a computer.
I would say that about half of what I call electronic exams are simply typing on the computer. But we have professors who require more. For some of the seminars where the grading may not be anonymous, some of our professors require that the answers be sent in by email rather than on diskette. So that's another step up. We have professors, for example, I teach computer applications and litigation. And during the exam, my students have to go into databases such as Summation, Blaze, into case management and litigation software. And so that's another step up. We have professors who require students to go out and search the internet during exams. One of our legal research instructors uses that as part of her final exam. And so that entails something else again. At every step, we ask, what is reasonable for the students to do? Is it reasonable for the students to do it within a certain time period? If it isn't, then the easiest thing to do is to take away the time period. What I'm saying is any exam which is not simply pencil and paper, which requires the use of a computer, I'm calling an electronic exam. Yeah?
Just to further clarify, so the professors do not prepare their exams, like they hand you a paper exam?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. They can hand it to me on paper. Sometimes they hand it to me on diskette. Sometimes I get it by email. Sometimes it's on their website.
Then how do you
That's
give
password.
it to the students?
What?
How do you then give it to the students? How do students?
Okay, my staff, if it's done on diskette, my staff makes copies of the diskette. We don't have the registrar's office do that. My staff does it. And we check every diskette to make sure that it's the complete exam. Because of that, we have a 2-week in advance sort of drop-dead date. Okay? I will tell you, I get very testy with professors who come back the day before the exam and want to change an electronic exam. And I'm not, that's unfortunate, but it does not, but then so does our registrar for people who hand in paper exams, so I guess that's not unusual. But basically, if it's done by diskette, then they give us one diskette and we make the copies. Yes?
Are you using Examinator?
We have not used Examinator yet. Villanova has a very high reliance on the student honor code. I personally have a feeling that law students are far more competitive than they are collaborative. I do not believe that law students tend to collaborate with each other during exams. I'm a lot more concerned about students going into their X drive or their home drive on the network. Unless the exam requires it, we block the exam lab computers from the network. And that helps considerably. I believe the law students are intelligent, that if law students want to find a way to get around our restrictions, they will do so. I'm not saying I'm opposed to Examinator. We just haven't started to use it yet.
Again, also to follow up on that, do you go to are those machines in that room open for people to use when you're not giving exams? And so, if so, do you go and clean the machines?
Okay. Yes, they are not open for people to use. Okay, we have a 40-person exam room that has computers, and then we have a 90-person student lab in the law library. The 90-person student lab is always open for students. So the exam room computers are used for just that. However, we still go through every evening before the next day and clean everything up, because I truly believe that as students use them over the course of the week, things happen to them. So we go in and we clean them up every night so that they're in the best possible shape for the next day. And we have had no complaints. We've had no complaints last fall or this semester. And even the one student who locked the machine up this spring said it was her fault, which I found extraordinary. So we've had very good luck. Yes?
How many students at one time can take an exam if you only have a 40-person computer lab?
Well, we can only have obviously 40 students, or 35 students at a time, which is why I encourage professors of larger classes to, if they're going to give an exam where they want students to type, to simply give a take-home exam.
Okay, you mentioned that some students use their notebook computers.
Yes.
Wired classrooms like this?
We do, and that's something else that we can do. That's also an option. We've got 2 wired seminar rooms and 1 wired lecture hall, and that can also be pressed into service. I will tell you that our first year professors have been far more resistant to the idea of giving an exam where the students could type until the first one this spring, and when she realized that she wasn't going to have to look at 90 to 120 students' handwriting anymore, she became very enthusiastic. So I think we're going to have more takers in the fall. Yeah?
2 questions. How do you manage the printing for the laptops for the network? And in terms of quality control of the laptops, how do you manage that?
Okay. In terms of the quality control of laptops, I'm ashamed to say that we don't. Okay. We do not have a mandatory laptop program, and our staff does not maintain the student's laptop. The students are told that if they want to use their own laptops to take an exam, then it's their responsibility. We do hand out a sheet several weeks in advance that says, if you want to use your own laptop, this is what I recommend that you have on your laptop in order to use it. That's pretty much it.
And the printing?
Oh, the printing, I'm sorry. I forgot it was a 2-part question. Okay, we have in the exam room, in the exam lab, we bring in a very high-powered printer. Any of the exam rooms, if the students are not going to turn in their answer on diskette or via email, the students can direct their printing to either the library, which has 10 printers. That's not something we encourage. But for a small seminar, let's see, I had a group of 20 where the professor wanted them to print out their answers instead of turn them in on a diskette. And for that, we brought in a very high-speed printer, and the students simply waited their turn. The professor agreed to give a 2-hour exam, and they had 4 hours to do it. A lot of the students printed early, and we didn't have anyone waiting in line for any more than several minutes to get their exams to turn in. It's not a perfect solution, but it's all right. It really is. Anything else? Yeah.
So electronic exams are only given for entire class? It's not an optional thing?
It can be optional. It can be optional. I've always offered that option to students with specific disabilities. There is one professor who will take either. I leave that up to the professors. If the professor wants simply all of the answers on diskette, then we don't give a written option. But we also make sure that all of the students in the class, we try to increase their comfort level with not handwriting. Yeah.
Just for my information, we did a test on this past semester using the examiner software. We used the old version of it, version 2. But they came down and gave us a demo, and the new version of the exams software actually allows professors to create exams in a protected environment. They have multiple choice or essay questions or whatever. They have some solutions for printing the exam out and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Actually, I've started to look at it. That's one of my projects over the summer.